Alright guys, so today we're going to talk about why I think real estate is one of the best investments possible. I'll tell you a little bit about what I've done in real estate just in the past couple years here. And I'm just going to be reading off some notes that I wrote down. So if you see me looking over, I'm looking at these notes. All these videos I'm going to make, I don't got time to edit videos. I don't got time to practice and prepare. These videos are going to be raw, they're going to be real. All right, so let's talk about this. So 2 years ago, I was in a much different situation than I'm in now. I was working full time. I was trying to operate a second job or a small business. I was doing organic farming. So I was working all the time. I did not have money. I was paying $633 a month in child support. I couldn't have my kids as much as I wanted to have my kids because of the work that I had to do to pay for the child support. So I was working nights. You know, my kids would be in school all day. I'd have to go into work before they even got done with school, and then I'd work all night while they were sleeping. I'm sure a lot of people can relate. Not a great scenario. Paying $633 a month in child support. I had no extra money ever. You know, I was constantly just barely paying the bills. But things are a lot different now. I work different hours. I have my kids now 4 days a week. So I actually have my kids the majority of the time now, which is great. It's awesome. My child support now is like, I don't know, like under $50 a month, you know, so so that's a big help. But so a couple years ago, I had worked and worked and worked. I guess at the time I was working a full-time job, I was working a part-time job, and I was trying to do this organic farming. I had to give up the organic farming. I didn't have time. I was never seeing my kids. So I had to give that up. I really enjoyed it. I liked working outside. It was fun. But ultimately, I wasn't making money. I wasn't going to make any money anytime soon. And it was a lot of work to not make any money. So I gave that up. I knew I could make more money through real estate. So I stuck with that. So anyways, I was working 2 jobs. With this second part-time job that I had at the time, I was saving as much as I possibly could from that. I managed to save $3,000, which was a lot for me. You know, it took a long time to save that. And I was looking at property every day. Every day, I still, almost every day, I look at the real estate market. I get an idea of what properties are selling for. I would recommend starting with that right there. Like, if you can't start with anything else, start by every single day looking at real estate in your area, seeing what the prices are, what properties are going for, and real quickly you'll get a real good idea of what could be a potential deal for you. So I recommend doing that, number one. But yeah, anyways, I had $3,000. I found a property that was foreclosed on. It was bank owned. They were selling it just with a listing agent. I put 10% down on this property. They wanted $30,000 for it. I had my $3,000 saved up, so it was perfect. So I put the $3,000 down, 10% down on $30,000. And I got kind of lucky that the market started going up. And it was maybe around a year that I held that property. And now, mind you, I had walked through a ton of properties at this point in my area. Didn't have money to put down on them, but I was walking through them. You know, I wanted to get an idea of, you know, what these properties looked like inside. So I had an agent showing me properties. I was walking through a ton of properties. And this property, this foreclosed $30,000 property, looked actually really good. it was solid. It had a basement. The basements up here in northern Wisconsin are usually terrible. We're right on Lake Superior. There's a lot of water in the ground, so every time the ground freezes in winter, it expands, you know. Walls are usually cracked and bowed, but this property was really good. It had a good basement, solid walls, no major cracks, no major bowing in the walls. So that was one of the things right there that I was like, okay, decent property. But yeah, the rest of the property was solid. You know, it needed things, you know, painting, minor stuff. When I did buy it and got into it, it needed a little bit of electrical. I think, you know, I spent like $800 or less on some electrical work. Trying to think if I paid for anything else. I think that was it. I think it was the electrical. Maybe one or two plumbing things that were minor, you know, not even, probably a couple $100. So I got this property for $3,000. It was pretty much ready to go. Like I said, I didn't even paint. I had a guy who I knew who had been looking for a place to rent. So I got him in there right away. He actually painted, did a pretty good job too. So I owned this property for about a year, I think maybe just over a year. Got it rented out right away, so it was rented the whole time. It never cash flowed for me again. That's kind of been my struggle so far. When you only put a couple $1,000s down, you know, $3,000 down on a property, you're usually not going to cash flow because your mortgage payment's going to be higher than what you would hope for a property to cash flow. So anyways, this property didn't cash flow, but it did pay for itself. I got it rented out right away, so my mortgage was covered. He was paying all utilities, and like I said, I hardly did anything. I had a little electrical work done, a little plumbing done. You know, I kept up the property as far as mowing and, you know, landscaping, but that's really not that hard to do on one property. So I got lucky that the market started to go up, and about a year later, I realized it was a great opportunity to sell this property, try to, I guess, recapture some of the appreciation of the property, and use it to buy a different property. So that's what I did. I listed it for sale. I ended up selling this property for like $71,000. So let's just keep the numbers simple for now. Let's not worry about real estate agent fees or closing costs or anything like that. So I bought it for $30,000, sold it for like 71. So we'll just say I made like $40,000 on this property, right? Off of a $3,000 investment, which took me forever to save up. So right there, increased my money quite a bit. Now I used a 1031 tax exchange, which allows you to not pay any taxes on any of the profit that you make when you sell a property, as long as you are rolling 100% all of the profits into a like kind, or, you know, just a similar, another rental property. So that's what I did. I rolled all that money into a duplex, the duplex that I still own now, which I'm currently in the process of hopefully selling. So at the time, again, I got lucky that the market was starting to go up quite a bit. But also it made it hard to find a new property because everything was going up. It was hard to find a decent quality property that I felt was worth the money, and I was willing to invest in. So I ended up finding this duplex. It's like hour and 15 minutes away from where I live, a little further than I would like, but it was the best investment at the time. Again, I was every single day looking at property, every single day, in my area, surrounding areas, probably within about an hour. So I found this property. It was the only thing worth putting my money into. It's a duplex. It was built in 2007, so slightly newer construction. The garage had been built 2 years prior, and when he built the garage, he put a new roof on the house as well. So in the garage was a 2+ car garage. So everything was pretty new, good to go. You know, I knew I wasn't going to have hardly any issues with this property. Everything was newer, nice, looked great. So it's a 6-bedroom, 3-bedroom in each unit. The only real difference is the upper unit has 2 bathrooms, where the lower unit only has 1. But good size units, and they were both already occupied, so I didn't have to worry about getting renters in there. I paid $155 for this property. I now have an offer. I'm going to be selling it for $210,000. So there's another like $45,000. But yeah, ended up being a good property. The tenants that were there have been there the entire time I've owned it. So again, this was another property that wasn't cash flowing for me, but again, it was paying for itself. I ran the numbers. I did have to increase the rents. I think the lower unit was paying $700. The upper unit was the guy that owned it, and he wanted to stay and then rent it back from me. So he wasn't paying rent at all. So the upper unit I set at $1,000 for rent. The lower unit, which was paying $700, I upped their rent to $900. So I kind of got an idea of the numbers, what my mortgage was going to be, what electric, water, everything was going to run. And I set my numbers off of that. You know, I wanted it to, at the very least, cover itself. I couldn't really go higher with rents than that, $1,000 to $900. It's a pretty rural area. There's not a lot going on, not a lot of employment. So that was really the best I could do as far as rent. But again, another property that didn't really cash flow for me. But again, at the time, it was the only thing worth investing in, and I knew the property itself was worth a lot more. I mean, again, built in 2007, it's over 3,000 square feet, the house alone. That new garage that was built 2 years ago, new roof on the house. So it was a good property, you know, nice property. Everything was nice, looks nice. And I knew it was worth more money than what I was paying. I was only paying $155 for it, and I knew it was worth more than that. So here we are now, again, probably about a year later from buying that one. And again, it's increased in value. I'm selling it for $210,000. Hopefully I have an offer for it. Hopefully everything goes through. So that's another $45,000. So with the $40,000 I made prior, another $45,000, so we're at like $85,000. So now there's another property I'm looking at. Right now what I want cash flow. So I'm gonna, if I sell this duplex, I'm gonna use a 1031 tax exchange again. It'll allow me to not pay any taxes on any income that I make, as long as I roll 100% of the profit, or 100% of the sale, all of it, into another property. So I have my eye on another property that's closer to me. It's another duplex. Again, this is a property that's a ton of repairs. Renovations have been made. Looks like a pretty decent property. I haven't walked through it yet, but planning to do that later this week, actually. So it looks like another good property. They're asking $135 for it. I'll have at least probably $75,000 to put down after rolling all the money from the sale of the duplex. So my mortgage payment will be really low. It'll be probably under $500,000. The renters on this one are paying all their own utilities, and rents are $1,000 a unit, so it's making $2,000. They're paying all utilities. My mortgage, like I said, will be really low, under $500 a month. So I'll finally have a property that's cash flowing for me here. You know, hopefully around $1,500 a month or so. So that'll be good. We're kind of getting into some weird times here. Not sure how the economy is going to do. I work 2 jobs, one full-time, one part-time. I don't really need the part-time job, but I'm trying to save up money because we're getting into weird times. I don't know what the future holds. And again, I want to be secure in the properties that I do own, which is why I want to get out of the duplex that I have that's just breaking even and get into this other duplex so I can have cash flow. That's going to be a big help. It'll make me more secure going into the future here, because you never know what's going to happen. I don't, I could lose my job, as far as, if the company goes under or whatever, they got to start laying people off. Times get slow. And same thing could happen to my renters, right? Like, they could lose their jobs, they could get laid off. So you just never know what's going to happen. So I just want to be a little more secure here going into the future. So that's the goal. So anyways, enough about me and my situation. But you see, within a couple years, I turned $3,000 into, almost $80,000. So that's really cool, really impressive, I think. Other people maybe not so much, but yeah. So we're going to talk about why I think real estate is one of the greatest investments. So these are some of the things I wrote down. We've got cash flow. We have appreciation, tax benefits, equity buildup, and leverage. So cash flow, again, I haven't really had that yet on my properties. They've just been breaking even, paying themselves off, which is great. It's not ideal, but it's better than nothing. It's kind of like a savings account, slowly building up. So haven't had cash flow, but that's what we're going for, hopefully, if I can get into this new duplex. And cash flow is just, after mortgage is paid, water, electric, gas, garbage, whatever you got to pay for the property. Always make sure you include everything when you run your numbers. And then if all that gets paid and there's extra money left over, that is cash flow. Now there's other things to consider, like property taxes. Sometimes people forget that, what factor in, like $1,500. It depends on the property, but I would say $1,500 to $3,000 is, a pretty common property tax for 2-3 units or less. So don't forget about that one. But that's, $1,500, $3,000 divided over 12 months, that's a yearly payment, so it's usually not too bad. But yeah, if there's extra money, that's your cash flow right there. So appreciation. Now you can have appreciation because inflation, which is what we've had in the past couple of years here, quite a bit of it. But there's also forced appreciation, which is when you're doing work to the property, renovating it, whatever, and you force the value of the property to go up by the work that you've done. And then there's also like demand appreciation, which is, if there's little housing in your area and more people are moving to the area, the demand in the area obviously is going to go up, which can cause housing prices to go up just based off the demand. So appreciation is another great one. There's tax benefits, like the 1031 exchange that I've used. It's allowing me to not pay any tax on all this money that I've been making as my properties increase in value and I sell them. What are some of the other tax benefits? You can depreciate your property. So say it's worth $100,000. I think usually the time that you depreciate it over is 27 and a half years. So you would take $100,000, you would divide that by 27 and a half years, and whatever that number comes out to, you can deduct that payment every year off of what you owe. And that can end up being quite a bit of money every year that you're deducting. That again is coming off of what you owe. So there's appreciation, and then there's depreciation. Depreciation being one of the tax benefits of property. You can deduct interest payments if it's a property you live in or primary residence. There is the Homestead Tax Act. That's another good one. That's if you've lived in the property for 2 consecutive years, and you sell the property, as long as it's under 5 units, so 4 units or less, it's always going to be considered residential. And again, that's kind of similar to the 1031 where you're not paying any tax at all. But with the 1031, you have to roll all of those profits into a new property. With the Homestead Tax Act, it being your primary residence for 2 consecutive years, you don't have to pay any taxes at all, and you get to keep the money. You don't have to roll it into a new property. So you can sell your personal residence after you've lived in it for 2 years, and any profit that you make is tax-free. So that's a big one. I would recommend that, if you're struggling like I was, you don't have much money, but you got, a few thousand to put down. You can put, there's tons of loans out there where you can put like 5% down, 3.5% down, 10% down, whatever. So if you can get into a property with a little bit down, live in it for 2 years, and then sell that property, hopefully it's gone up in value, hopefully you can make some money, then you'd have a larger amount, maybe like me, maybe you put $2,000-$3,000 down, in a couple years you're able to sell it and you got $10,000-$20,000 to put down on a new property, so you can get something bigger, better, maybe something with more units, maybe something that's going to cash flow more, whatever it may be. So that's the Homestead Tax Act. That's another great tax benefit. Then there's equity buildup, which is just over time, your mortgage payment being paid. It's going to pay down what you owe on the property, the principal amount. And that's kind of where I've been with the properties I've had so far. That's really all I've been getting, is well, I mean, I've been getting appreciation, but that I haven't been getting cash flow, but I have been getting that equity buildup, which is my tenants paying their rent every month. I use that rent payment to pay the mortgage, so the mortgage is slowly getting paid off, paid down. So I'm slowly, it's kind of like building up a savings account, right? So that's equity buildup. And last, leverage. Now this, to me, is one of the greatest things. I think it's often overlooked. So let's talk about this here. So, like, yeah, you can make good money with real estate. You can shelter some of that money through the tax benefits that we've been talking about. But leverage is key when it comes to real estate. So, all right, so say you purchase a $200,000 duplex with cash. Say you have the cash to buy this $200,000 duplex, right? You owe it free and clear. Let's say it increases in value by 10%. So it's gone up $20,000, right? $200,000 property increases 10%, so now it's worth $220,000. So in theory, your net worth or your return on your investment is a 10% return, right? You paid $200,000 for it. It went up 10%. So now it's worth $220,000. So you've also made a 10% return on your investment, right? That $200,000 has made an extra $20,000. So that's a 10% return on your investment, right? Now here's the great thing. It would be stupid to put $200,000 down on a property, right? You don't want to do, like, it's nice to own it free and clear and not have to worry about a mortgage, but that's not being smart with your money. So this is where the leverage comes in, and this is what's so important about real estate, I think. So let's say you only put 20% down on that property. So instead of putting $200,000 down, you're only putting $40,000 down. The property still costs $200,000, so you're going to have a mortgage payment. But again, you're running the numbers, you're making sure mortgage is covered, you're making sure this property is at the very, very minimum going to break even, right? So now you've only put $40,000 down on this property. It still increases in value 10%, right? So it's, again, still worth now $220,000. You only put down $40,000, and it's increased in value by $20,000. So your return on your investment now is a 50% return on investment. You put $40,000 down, that's your investment. It's gone up in value $20,000. So 20,000 is half of 40,000. So you've made a 50% return on your $40,000 that you put down. And that right there is the leverage that I'm talking about. That's what's so important, because you don't get that with other investments, right? Like with stocks, everything, you can't put 10% down on a stock, right? Like if you want to own a stock, you have to put 100% of what the stock costs down. I mean, there's new ways with whatever, Robinhood and yada yada. You can buy like pennies worth of shit and whatever. It's dumb. Don't do that. But yeah, leverage is key. Leverage is killer. The fact that you could put 10, 20%. I started with that $30,000 property, and I put 10% down, 3,000. So, ton of opportunity to put. You know, if you're a first-time home buyer, there's often loans that you can get with 3.5% down, 5% down, whatever it may be. But you're gonna get all the benefits of owning that property. You get the tax benefits, you know, the write-offs, the depreciation of the property. If the property appreciates in value, the equity buildup, the cash flow, you get all of those benefits just by only putting 5% down, 10% down. And that's one of the biggest things to me right there. And that's one of the things that I think is often overlooked, is the leverage that you get with real estate. You're only putting down a very little amount. You're still getting all of those benefits of owning that property. So that's key. So those are the things I wanted to talk about today. Kind of ended up being a long video, but gave you a good rundown of my situation and the money I've made in the past couple of years here with real estate, and some of the key reasons why I think it's one of the greatest investments. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment. If you want me to dive deeper into any of those subjects, we can certainly do that. But yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys. If you guys have any good stories on money that you have made with real estate, any, you know, similar stories to me, I'd love to hear those as well. So comment below, and we'll talk to you guys again.